to get into a track by track review, and we are going to start with the title track, Chinese Democracy. The album kind of starts with this kind of like eerie intro. You kind of get these these sounds like these chatters, and it has kind of got that kind of Chinese, Asian-y, kind of Oriental-y kind of feel to it. You can kind of imagine yourself on like a busy street in like China or something like that. The guitar's like plucking and building up. That does help build up a lot of tension, but the song itself really only kind of does like an okay job at opening the record. I feel like it lacks like a real kick. An album with this much kind of like surrounding it needed at the time. Like I don't really think it's like, oh my god, this is it. We are in Chinese Democracy. Let's go. This album has started. I just don't think it really kind of is hype enough or anything like that. Another really big thing I noticed and kind of is a thing throughout the whole album that I'm going to keep bringing up is like kind of like the production and the mixing. This is very clean and very polished. Obviously, with so many years and so much money behind it, obviously would be. But I don't think that's a good thing, to be honest, because with Guns N' Roses and their earlier works, I always think one of the great things about their sound was kind of like how raw it felt. This feels very like sterile, I say, very, very clean. All in all, I think a song like Chinese Democracy could have done with a bit more of like a rawness to it. So I'm going to rate Chinese Democracy a 6 out of 10. I'm going to do out of 10 ratings for all the tracks on this album. And then we get into, I've got a feeling I'm going to say this wrong. I don't know why. I just always look at it and like my brain kind of fuzzes up. Shackler's Revenge. That's what I'm going to call it. If you don't like it, please feel free to kick off. So there's certainly a lot going on in this song. The intro riff does spark a bit of interest, but at the same time, it feels very kind of like, I feel like it's something that could put you off immediately because it's very like, not bit sound like fucking Beavis. This track does feel a bit more of like a modernized Illusion track. Like I kind of think of like the song Garden of Eden when I think of this track that was on Use Your Illusions. It's very, fast, very, breakneck, very punchy. The chorus is quite catchy, and there's a few hooks in this track. I do enjoy the subtle Nine Inch Nails influences. I think at the time when kind of Nine Inch Nails really broke out, Axl Rose was like really taken aback by that band and very influenced by them. And on the revolving door of musicians that went in and out during the years, I think he did have a few Nine Inch Nails artists contribute on this album. I just wish the track popped more, and it just wasn't as. So I think that is another 6 out of 10 on that one. But now we get into Better, and to be honest, I can't put my bias behind me here. Better fucking slaps, and it goes hard. I've always loved this track. I love the catchy vocal melodies. I think the guitar on this is a solid track. I've been enjoying this track since about first time I heard it is when I saw them live in about 2006. If I had one complaint, it'd be the slightly weak kind of pre-chorus and chorus, but I think the verse is the real hook on this track. Some that's the case. I think there's an amazing guitar solo in the song too. I really do think Better is one of my favourite Guns N' Roses tracks. Although there is a lot going on in this song, a stripped down version I would have made it a 10 out of 10, but I'm just going to dip it slightly and make it a 9 out of 10. So we're going to, after that, Street of Dreams. We slow down a bit with more of a ballad. I think this is a great back-to-back, by the way, Better than Street of Dreams. This really is a great ballad. The album does shine with its more ballad songs. I'm a big fan of Axl Rose's vocals and lyrics on this song. I haven't got really too much to say about it. I think it's a solid 8 out of 10. And then we get into If the World. I don't hate this song. I'll give it that. But I really don't like it. It's a bit of a fucking porn jam, to be honest. It sounds like fucking 70s porno music. The dragged out vocals, kind of like the way Axl delivers them from line to line, I'm not really a fan of. I do like drumming on this track. It is like a nice little drum beat on this. It's not terrible, but it overstays its welcome. It's a bit filler, and sadly, it's kind of a drop off from kind of what we've just had previously. I'm going to rate this one a 5 out of 10. And then we get into There Was a Time. Again, I do have to give praise to Axl's vocals and melodies. The chorus is crap, though. One thing about this album is the choruses are a bit weak. to be honest. I don't think they're like Axl Rose's strong points, especially in this album. I can see how people can find this album very messy, as some of the transitions from the song parts don't blend so well. So I think sometimes the verse and the chorus, things kind of just move geared a bit too sharply, and it kind of feels like there's been a bit of cut and paste on these songs, and like there's kind of like an element of like a Frankenstein to them. Obviously, with so many years of work, so many people involved, this was just inevitable and bound to happen with an album like this. So I think that is a problem. What does pick this song back up is the final third for me. I think it really goes really hard. I love the guitar solo. I was going to give this a 6 out of 10, but kind of for that last kind of end bit of the song, I'm going to push it to a 7 out of 10. You're welcome, Axel. So then we get into the Catcher in the Rye cute intro. Again, the verse is a nice catchy hook. I like the feeling of kind of a bit of feeling of melancholy on this track. Again, I'm not massive on some of the transitions from verse to chorus, but the chorus is strong on this one. The piano stands out nicely on this, and I do like the breakdown. I think this song is pretty pleasant. However, I feel the mix gets a bit muddy at the outro. I don't know if this was just an issue of my. I was listening to this on vinyl. I don't know if this was an issue of my record, but everything started to get like a bit fuzzy and a bit muddy at the end. I don't know if that was a problem with the mix or if it was just, I don't know, maybe my record needed cleaning or something like that. But it did feel a bit odd. So I'll give that song a 7 out of 10, which looking back on it now feels a little generous considering what I had to say about it. But don't worry, because we've got scraped. I'm assuming it's scraped. Although impressive, I'm not a fan of this vocal intro. I'm not gonna try and impersonate it here, but it's kind of like one of them. Like if it came on in public or in the car or something, I'd probably immediately scrap it, like skip it. I don't know if anyone else ever feels like that with songs sometimes, where you kind of get this second-hand embarrassment and a bit of cringe off it. I do think it is a bit cringe. Going back to like kind of like the copy paste thing that I said, I really kind of noticed that in this song, like some of the vocal parts cut off too soon. So like, if he's sustaining a note or not quite finished the end of a word yet, it feels like kind of like cuts. Again, with kind of like an album like this, it's obviously a case of too many cooks in the kitchen, isn't it? And I think that really does kind of show on this album. There's a lot of kind of like guitar wankery here, which I like to call it. I'm not a fan of Buckethead's contributions on this album, really. I think they do work sometimes, but a lot of the times they're just kind of like thrown in as like a little kind of like noodle or to make a bit of noise. I think this is the weakest track on the album so far. I'm going to have to give it a 4 out of 10. So then we get into Raid. I can't remember the full name. I've only wrote Raid on my notes here. Sorry. Axl's Nine Inch Nails influences showing again on this intro. Another similar vocal start, similar to the last track. However, and I think this is the first time I can really say this on this album, the chorus is fucking great. I do really like the chorus. The verses are a bit weak, but it does call back a bit back to kind of like the music from the Use Your Illusions albums a bit, I think. I think all in all, I don't think this track has much to say for itself because, well, besides its catchy chorus, Buckethead solos, again, really don't do much for me. So it's a 5 out of 10. Scraped was 4 out of 10, by the way. Don't think I said that. Then we get into Sorry. So we're kind of quite deep in the album now, heading towards the back end. So we've had a bit of a middle slump so far on this album. Sorry was a song I really latched onto a lot when I was younger, especially kind of like the lyrics and kind of like the moodiness of the song. Although it's not the best song on the album, I really resonate with the emotions on this track. The build up to the chorus and the pre-chorus are really nice. The solo's great. It has a great bluesy kind of number to it. A bigger fan of this style of playing than kind of like the kind of stuff Buckethead throws in. And I've rated that a 7 out of 10. I think my favourite line from Sorry, it's better to live with the lies about me than to live with the truth about you. I think that really stands out as quite a strong, hard-hitting lyric, that. Then we get into the IRS. This track is a bit messy. Nothing really stands out to me. I always find the lyrics, I'm going to call the president, I'm going to call the IRA. The IRA, fucking hell, you don't want to call them, fucking hell. Don't call the IRA. I'm gonna call the FBI. I really don't like this song. I always find these lyrics a bit cringe and a bit weird. I just don't really think it's got much to really say for itself. It's just pure filler, in my opinion. 5 out of 10. And then we get into Madagascar. I'm quite conflicted about this track because feel like it's shot for the moon. I feel like it was intended to be one of the epics, like Estranged, kind of something attempted like that, but it really kind of falls flat a bit. However, that's not to say that I hate it. I feel like it is too kind of programmed and not organic enough. There are parts I enjoy, like the more kind of like emotional tone. The breakdown with the Martin Luther King Jr. and the samples that they sampled off Civil War is a cool bit, I will admit. All in all, I think this is a bit of a dud, and like kind of like having like this kind of clump of kind of mid tracks on this kind of part of the album really drags it down a lot, because I'm gonna have to rate Madagascar a 5 out of 10. We pick up now on the way towards the end. So we get into This I Love. This I Love is no November Rain, but this is a great track. The piano does a fantastic job carrying the track from start to end. The guitar solo, it really stands out. The lyrics are basic and they do repeat a bit, which is a shame, but it's not needed. It's not really a song that's meant to be telling a big complex story. I will rate that a more generous 7 out of 10. I would definitely recommend listening to that one. And then we get into the album's closer, Prostitute. I've got to be honest, similar to Better. I can't prevent my bias from getting in the way. Better, Sorry, This I Love, and this track were the songs I really resonated a lot with, like during that kind of like that dark period of my life. That they were always on repeat. I remember always like like putting this song on in bed at like 3-4 o'clock in the morning, not being able to sleep, just kind of looping this song and kind of like resonating with the lyrics and stuff like that. You know, I can't prevent my bias getting in the way there, as I said. As soon as the song started, when I was doing my listen last night, kind of a lot of them feelings kind of did just kind of like rush back, like kind of like a time capsule kind of thing. I do think the lyrics are really kind of quite sad, and I do feel that. I really do feel like a kind of connection to the song. But I do have to try and review it, so I have to nitpick. The chorus, again, isn't anything to write home about. I think that's a problem with this album as a whole, is that kind of and what people expect, you know, quotation marks, from a Guns N' Roses album. You look back to Welcome to the Jungle, you look back to Sweet Child of Mine, Paradise City. You want these anthemic, big, booming choruses. This album really doesn't deliver on that. It really doesn't deliver on the anthems and stuff like that. In my opinion, this is an album you need to listen to as an album. I think you do have albums like that. Anyway, get back and finish this track review off. Chorus, again, as I said, it isn't strong. The album has shown that throughout. The Buckethead parts aren't great. But, you know, at the end of the day, I'm only human, and I can't disconnect my feelings from this song. So I'm going to have to give it an 8 out of 10. So you look at all the scores. I've got, 6-6, 9-8-5, 7-7, 4-5, 7-5-5, 7-8. So as you can imagine, that is a real mixed bag. Like, it's mad to have an album where you've got four out of 10s, and then you've got 9 out of 10s. You know, you don't really see that. I think the best way I could describe this album is like a roller coaster, where, you have that slow kind of ride up to the top, and then it plummets down to the bottom and then brings you back up again at the end. But it doesn't really recapture the highs from kind of earlier on in this album, I think. This album will always kind of take me back to a period of time that, although it was dark and filled with a bit of sadness, I feel like time does heal all wounds, and I kind of can look back with it with a bit of kind of nostalgia. In a way, I do give it a lot of credit for that kind of stuff. Looking at it in a more kind of modern lens with a critical eye, considering the history and just how much money and time and all the drama that went into this album, I do have to say it did fall flat. It shot for the moon, and it just, it just spiraled off and kind of crashed. I do think that's a shame. I do think with a bit of work, it could have been a lot better. Well, let me change that. I think with a lot less work, it could have been a lot better. So, my review of this album has to be, drum roll, 6 out of 10. I think that's fair. I think people may disagree, especially more Guns N' Roses fans. I think even people who don't like this album will disagree. So I don't think I'm going to be pleasing anyone here, but I think a 6 out of 10 is fair enough for this album. When I was playing this, my partner was listening as well. She's not really a music head. She's never listened to a Guns N' Roses album in her life. She gave it a 7 out of 10. So take from that what you want. So that was kind of like my review of the album. It's kind of one of them where it's like I said before, like too many cooks really do spoil something. So many people worked on this album. It was kind of stop and start for so long. So much trouble around it. Obviously, it was always cast under that shadow of how can this top the earlier work? How can Axel kind of prove that this album should exist and that this band should exist without Slash and the other members? Again, Axel's always kind of had a bit of a love hate Marmite kind of reputation with people. I mean, the people that don't like Axl Rose really kind of like jumped on this and really just didn't want to give this album the time of day. I think the people who love Axl love this record and love it for what it's for. I think the comment you heard the most at the time, and you hear a lot today, is this shouldn't have been a Guns N' Roses album. Axl should have just gone solo. Like his name and his kind of brand was so big enough at this point that he could have easily have just carried on as Axl Rose. I think if he released this album under his name Axl Rose, and you kind of take out any kind of relation to Slash or anything to do with the previous Guns N' Roses works before this, I do think it would have been looked at more positively. But as I say, having a recent listen, there are some kind of mid sloppy tracks on this album. I can't be too generous. I do have to